Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am back again with Jimmy and Diasis. Actually, it's the same day, but we made multiple videos today, so our schedules don't always work out, and we wanted to get a few in. But this time, what I wanted to talk about was actually triggered because of Diasis, because Diasis is much more in favor of what I've seen called aggressive activism than I personally am. And we've had a lot of discussions about this, and he's made a lot of very valid points, and I want to be fair because I always think back to that saying that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So
I like that.
Anyone who's trying to do something to raise awareness, I'm never going to tell someone they shouldn't do it, but I do think some things are more effective than other things, and the way Diasis feels about it is different. So I want to get it started with him first by asking you, Diasis, do you think it's fair to call it aggressive activism? Because I've seen some people say that that's just a disparaging label because you don't like it. What do you think about that?
I think it's an accurate term, but I think it has a bad connotation. You know, you hear aggressive activism, and you associate it immediately with something bad, or terrorism, or something like that. But to me, it's not always like that. Sometimes it is. I like to think of it as doing what is necessary.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, Jimmy, what's your take on just the quick summary before we get into what we're going to define as aggressive activism or whatever? What's your take on it?
I've seen several methods.
Feel free, go ahead, list those off because we're going to have to talk about them.
I mean, we got the Kingdom Hall crashes, the cart crashes, the memorial crashes. Those are listed. I guess you could put those in the category of aggressive activism.
Yeah. They're awesome.
And then you have more along the lines of reaching people online, different things like that, talking to people in person. Me, it's we're going to talk about it more, but I think it really depends on your personality, what you're comfortable with doing. So for me, I couldn't go out and do mad aggressive activism, maybe. Just depends on the situation.
At this point in time.
Yeah, at this point in time.
I believe in you.
But I'm right now. I'm more inclined to take a milder approach.
Mm-hmm. Now, for me personally, I'm definitely more in the camp of educating people. But that said, like I said, I'm not going to tell people what they should and shouldn't do. I don't think it's my place, because if I'm going to do that, I may as well stay in Jehovah's Witnesses and tell everybody else how they need to live and what's right or not. I figure if you're not breaking the law, and to me that's important, if you're not breaking the law, if you're not doing anything illegal, I would define aggressive activism, for lack of a better term, as anything that gets in the face of current Jehovah's Witnesses. Like you said, the cart crashes, the hall crashes, the memorial crashes. My problem, and I want you to respond to this, my problem with it is that I feel like it just pushes people back in more because they see that and they read what Watchtower already calls us angry apostates, and then they see people storm into a kingdom hall and start yelling, or even if not yelling, just speaking out something against Jehovah's Witnesses, and they think, oh, Watchtower was right, look at what they're doing, led by Satan. And so I feel like it pushes people further in. What's your take on that, Diasis? Because I know you don't agree.
Well, I kind of agree, and then I kind of have my own opinions about it. I think that aggressive activism definitely fuels the persecution complex of cults and Jehovah's Witnesses alike. Absolutely. It validates the claims made by Watchtower that we're the angry apostates, like you say, who are out to get you. For me, aggressive activism is not really about active members in the congregation. It's about showing the authority figures that you are not going to take it. It's about sending the shockwaves and, heard around the world to the people on the outside that there's something wrong here. And that's why I think it is even necessary. For instance, I'll give you an example. I mean, sometimes you can't, this is my opinion here, and this is probably, a lot of aggressive activist opinion here. Sometimes the bully is not going to listen to logic. Sometimes you're just going to have to stand up to him and tell him to stand down. And those are just my personal views. I mean, now, I'm not like some aggressive activists out there, or even regular activists who think that there's only one way of doing it, because there's definitely not. In that sense, I'm not in disagreement of, more milder approaches to activism. I think that they both have their place.
And I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of people think it's an either or thing.
Yeah.
Like either you have to do the one or you have to do the other, and you cannot cross the line. And I really don't like that. I don't like that there's camps at all. I think we all have the same goal. We're all trying to get Watchtower to either change or stop, or to convince enough people that they're wrong to get them out, that they won't be able to cause any more damage. So I don't think people should be picking camps. That's the biggest problem.
We're all trying to reach that same goal, expose Watchtower for who they are.
Yeah.
And so people differ in degrees anyway, emotionally, physically, mentally. So when it comes to the activism, a lot of folks are going to have different avenues that they want to take that they feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
What you do, I may not feel comfortable with. Yeah. What I do, you might not think's enough.
Yeah.
But we have the same goal in mind.
Yeah.
So instead of, as you said, having the camps pit themselves against each other, we need to pull together.
That's the important thing to remember at the end of the day, in my opinion. Yeah.
And I see a lot of that us versus them behavior. Like, I'll get on Twitter and I'll see people insulting certain activists that have insulted, or even if insulting is too strong of a word, they're definitely antagonizing each other.
Right.
Because they don't have the same
and we don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I don't think that's productive at all. I think Watchtower would love to have all the activists so busy fighting with each other that they're not focused on them.
They love that.
Yeah.
And I will say this, because I'm not as far in the passive isn't really the right word, but I can't think of any other word to counter aggressive. We were talking about that the other day. Yeah, we were trying to come up with a word. What's the opposite of aggressive? Well, passive, but it's not really.
It's not really passive.
Anyway, one thing, even though I'm definitely farther on this camp, Jimmy, I'll use you as the passive side.
Assertive activism.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is that it?
Assertive activism.
Oh, okay, yeah, there you go. Aggressive versus assertive. There you go. We'll call it that. I like that. I'm not as far as some as being against the more aggressive style. And there's one situation in which I think I would never, ever question someone's need. And we've talked about this. I saw a Kingdom Hall crash video where this lady walked in there on a day that she knew that an elder that had hurt her was going to be given the talk, and called him out in front of the whole congregation, because it was never dealt with. They never did anything. He was still in good standing. Obviously, he's still an elder.
Wow.
Nothing was ever done. And she walked in there to make sure that everybody sitting in the hall knew what this guy was about. And for me, from that perspective, I don't care if that pushed every single person in the hall closer to the organization. She needed to do that.
Yeah,
I agree.
That was cathartic.
I think we need more of that.
And I can't deny that if more people walked in and said, this happened to me from that person, and that person is the one who did it, and they're still an elder, or whatever, or they're still in good standing if they're not in any position of service, I do think it would probably make people ask more questions. And the counterpoint to my point, because I do think that it does push people further in, but I saw a post on EXJW Reddit, and I shared it with you guys. a guy who wrapped caution tape
Yeah.
around the kingdom. I know DeAces love that. That's
Brilliant.
I love it. There's a few things I'll say about it. One, and he was clear in his post, even though I don't agree with the behavior, he made some good points, and I want to be fair. One, he said, because people were calling it vandalism, he said, no, I didn't do anything permanent. This tape is just wire tied to the railing. Little snip of the scissors, it comes down. No damage, no destruction, no nothing. He said, two, it wasn't really for the people in the hall because there was a train station across the street, and he put it up at 11 o'clock at night, and the trains ran all night from what I understand. And he wanted people to see it, to raise awareness of what's going on inside the congregation to people outside.
Absolutely.
And the third point that he made, and this is the one that really hit me because I hadn't thought about it. He said, anything you say or do against the Watchtower organization is going to be interpreted by true believers as you being an angry apostate. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, so you may as well do whatever works. And while I don't know that I agree with him that what he did works, it's hard to argue with the logic there, because that's true. When it made me think, when I was a true believer, I saw guys with signs, but it didn't matter how right people were. I would not have listened to them. I just would have labeled them as an angry apostate and moved on. It wouldn't have mattered how reasonable they were. Right. If they were reasonable, I would think of that scripture, well, that's because Satan transforms himself into an angel of light, and he's just trying to smooth talk me into apostasy, right? So that's a valid point.
You lose either way.
Yeah, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Basically.
And I get that, and I'm interested on you guys' take. I know DA disagrees, but what do you think about that, Jimmy?
Well, me personally, I enjoy the aggressive activism of videos. I just sit there and I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing that they can do that. Which actually, I have a comment from Watchtower that I wanted to read from one of our folks, and this kind of hit it right on the head. It says, I won't say the name, but if you wrote this, you know who you are. It says, I think each to their own. Each person wakes up differently, so different methods are needed. To be honest, there's not any activism I've seen that I disagree with. There are ones I'd not do myself, like hall crash, but that's because I don't have and there's like 3 emojis for balls. If I did grow a pair, I'd dress as a Smurf at the memorial, sit up front at my mother's hall, and knock back the wine. JWs think they are being persecuted, even if you ask the wrong Bible questions. What we see as mild or aggressive activism is not what they see. They see it all as aggressive if it's against the organization. So no matter what we do to bring awareness, those that are still in, they've been indoctrinated for so many years. And you hear about apostate material all the time. They're always saying something about that in the meetings. So in their minds, that's all they're conditioned. Remember how we were conditioned, just like you just said a second ago. So no matter what we do, they're going to view us as angry, mentally diseased apostates. So what we need to do is to damp down that thinking that they have, that we're angry and we're aggressive and mentally diseased, by doing things, having this discussion. You know, one thing that I liked about the comments from our first video is a lot of people appreciated the fact that we didn't come across as angry. We didn't come across as, oh, well, those are 3 wackos in Jimmy's living room talking about nonsense. No.
Right. We weren't yelling, we weren't fighting, we weren't, down with the tower. Because I've seen that. I've seen people do that. Down with the tower, And I understand the feeling. I really understand.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like I can't relate in some way.
Well, think about it. Everybody that has come out of everybody that has come out of the organization, and those that are still in, we've been hurt by Watchtower one way or the other. And when you're hurt, you want to strike back.
Yeah.
That's just human nature.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the amount that you strike back at depends on, or how hard you strike back, depends on what kind of person you are. Are you a more Socratic method person where you take the information and you just have a mild approach, or are you just, and can't say angry, but you're so upset you got hurt that you're like, you know what, I'm in your face.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say this about what you said at the very beginning. It hit me because I hadn't thought about it. That the schoolyard bully analogy, that sometimes until somebody knocks the bully out, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep doing what they do. And I hadn't thought about that. If Watchtower knows that the people they're kicking out, that they're robbing of their families, that they're causing harm to in the way that they are, if they knew, and this is devil's advocate, because again, I'm not in favor of the aggressive activism, but if they knew that every single person they did that to was going to storm back into that Kingdom Hall the next week and tell everybody what happened and the real story and about if they knew that that was always going to happen, would they keep doing what they're doing? Now, but then we run into questions of legality. Like, I went to a march once when I was in the progressive church, Baptist church in Charlotte. So I did go to one, but it was very well organized. They had gotten the appropriate permits from the city, things like that. And a lot of people showed up in March. And I wonder, well, if you're going to do that, if that's really your goal, is to draw attention to a problem, go through the proper legal processes, go get the permit, do a march, make sure you follow the law, and it depends on where you live. Like, sometimes you can stand across the street as long as you're so many feet away that you can hold the signs or whatever, and you're perfectly legal. You're not breaking any laws. As long as you're not breaking the law. My problem, as much as I respect some of the logic that the guy who wrapped the hall with security tape, and I do respect some of the arguments he was making, my problem with it is that's still illegal. Even if it's not causing damage, it's not legal to. It's like toilet papering somebody's house when you're a teenager.
That's true.
You are breaking a law. And
it's technically vandalism.
Yeah, it's technically vandalism. You can argue, well, we're not damaging anything. They can clip it down. Yeah, but what does the law say? And if you are willing to break the law in your activism, the problem is, in a way, my opinion, you are validating the things that Watchtower is saying. Well, look, they're willing to break Caesar's law and go out and do these problems. Even if, what Watchtower is doing is far worse than wrapping a hall with tape. So that's kind of why, while I sympathize greatly, far more than I used to, now that we've had all of our discussions, and I see your side much more clearly, which is why you should not live in an echo chamber, people. You should talk to people that don't agree with you, but you respect, in order to get their perspective. You don't have to agree with it, but it will help you understand things better. So even though Deasis and I aren't on the same page about this, we respect each other's opinions about this. And I think I'm a better person because I understand the whole rather than having some preconceived idea in my head. Jimmy, you were going to say something.
We definitely, for everyone out there, we definitely want to come across as not what Watchtower is viewing us as. Like I said before, we're not mentally diseased. We're not crazy. We don't want folks to go out there and do things that would cause serious harm. You can be so angry at the organization, and depending on where you may be mentally, we really don't need people doing stuff crazy. Like going and setting fire to a Kingdom Hall.
Yes.
Or shooting inside of a Kingdom Hall.
Definitely not.
Even
if nobody's there.
Do not do that stuff, because that will feed into that persecution complex, and then that will derail the efforts of folks like us who are just trying to say, hey guys, wake up. This is the information. We're just trying to share information with you. And so once they get wind of that major aggressiveness, they're not going to listen.
Yeah.
Now, Deasis, what do you think about, like, I've seen recently some people went to the Love Never Fails convention, and I don't remember what they did, and I should have watched it. I think it was an EXJW biker either his video or he was involved or something. What do you think about that? Like walking into conventions with signs and things, that kind of thing. How do you think, what benefit do you think that is having?
I'm honestly not sure of the benefit that it's having, but it sure as hell is amusing. And it gets people's attention.
Yeah. So are you more on the, it's not really going to help the people inside, but it's going to raise awareness on the outside?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll do anything for, active members, that are rank and file. I think that what it does is it sends a message to the authority and the people who are running the show at Watchtower, and they're like, okay, we need to not mess with these guys, because they're going to raise hell and really blow the lid off of all this, and it's not worth it.
Back to the bully analogy.
Yeah, back to the bully thing.
Yeah.
And they realize this is not worth it. And, I don't know how effective assertive or regular activism would be against the authority figures of Watchtower, like the elders, the overseers, and the governing body, because they have already demonstrated that they are not willing to be reasonable, even if that includes your life. So even if their doctrine, which they know is inspired and maybe even wrong, involves your life, they don't care. And so they've shown that. So they've shown that they have no regard for human life, in essence. And so that is where I always go back to the bully analogy. Reasoning with them and regular activism for them is just not going to be effective. I think that they need someone who is going to stand up and say, hey, stop.
Okay, so I'm getting a clearer picture, whereas what I do and what some other activists like me do, the educational side,
right,
is targeting the rank and file who have doubts. When they go looking, they can see, oh, well, we're not argumentative, we're not combative, we're not angry, we're none of those things. Here's just the facts. You need to know about it. What you're saying is that the more aggressive stuff isn't for them. It's sending a message to the higher ups. Right. That if you do this,
don't tread on me.
Yeah, there's going to be a response whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I get it.
Absolutely.
That actually makes more sense to me, because you're not really going to convince any true believers. But and I don't know if it works, but I get the thinking that it might act as a deterrent.
If something like that happens out of Kingdom Hall, the elders are going to inform the branch about it.
That's true.
They're going to let the CEO know about it, so the word goes up the line.
Yeah.
And if all these halls are sending all these messages to the branch may have to make a strategic decision.
Right.
And they've done that before. And
Runs
I always
uphill.
go back to the blood issue in Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
They changed the policy in order to appease Bolivia. Now, granted, activists aren't government, but it shows that they have been willing under multiple circumstances. Go to jwfacts.com. They have been willing to change things in order to make their life easier in different countries. So I get the thinking that if you put enough pressure,
that's right,
that they might change it to make their own lives easier if the cost is high enough. My problem is that sometimes I feel like you're hurting good people in an effort to get to the bad. And I don't know if that's always true. And I personally, I don't see activism as a war. So I understand, like a general, that's a call he's got to make. Yeah, some good, innocent people might get hurt, and we're going to try to minimize that as much as possible. But if we don't do this thing, the dictator's not going to fall. So I understand the thinking, but I do not see myself as a soldier in a war. I see myself as a teacher in a school. I'm trying to educate people into finding their own way out rather than trying to force the hand of the principal to be better to the students.
That's a great point, actually. I would say you highlighted something very important here. I think aggressive activists view themselves as a lot more black and white, and with an us versus them mentality, and that we are at war and a lot's at stake here, and we have to do what's necessary. And your regular activist, assertive activist, whatever you want to call them, they say, well, this is about teaching and helping others. And You know, honestly, like I said, even as I am pro-aggressive activist, I still view, you know, all these forms of activism as constructive. They are all necessary. You need them all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my personal opinion. You need all of them. There is no one set way of doing this. There is no one right way. I mean, I think to even have that opinion, this is my personal opinion here, but to even have that opinion to me is just arrogant. You know, and
People
wrong.
just need to do what they feel comfortable with.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
And then if you feel comfortable with something, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
If I'm
even if that means fade, you know, even if that means not doing anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah. And I've heard a number of people talk about that. Like some activists, some people will exit and not do anything. Like, look, I'm done. I'm moving on with my life. I'm never going to talk about you people again. I'm out of here. Goodbye. And that's totally respectable. Then there's other people who are like, no, I have to say something.
That's where I'm at.
Some people only have to say something for a limited amount of time.
Yes.
Like they have to get it out. And then once it's out, okay, I'm done. I'm good. They're gone. And then there's some people who they just know until they're gone, as long as there are people being affected, I'm going to keep doing that.
That's right.
And now currently that is where I'm at. Though granted I haven't been doing this for that long, only about 8 months. My current feeling is that as long as there are people who need to be informed, I feel an obligation to inform them. You know, I feel an obligation. Now, once Watchtower's gone, assuming that ever happens, if there's a guy, then there's no need to keep talking about it. I'm not going to get, you remember back when Watchtower was a thing? I'm not going to do that. I don't care if it might.
Back in my day, we had religions.
Yeah.
It was really rough.
Yeah.
You couldn't do anything.
Right, exactly. So it's not like I'm going to keep making videos if they ever disappear, but I just feel like I have to speak. And so if someone's gut impels them to march into a kingdom hall because they need to say or speak truth to power and tell the person that hurt them in front of everybody, this is what they did, and you all need to know about it. And I do respect that. Even if I think it's counterproductive, I do respect a person's need to do it. And I would never tell somebody, no, don't do that, you're just being foolish or whatever.
No.
And that's where I'm at.
They're being awesome.
Yeah, well, I think we covered it pretty well, and I know people watching have opinions on this, and I want to know, because I don't think any of us should ever close the book on our opinions. I think we should constantly feed our opinions with new input, new information. So please tell us what you think. Leave it in the comments. Are you for it? Are you against it? Are you more like Deasis? You think we need the whole range? What are the pros and cons in your opinion? Because if we talk about this again, and it will come up, I'm sure, I want to have as much information as possible.
We just need to remember that we're all fighting for the same goal.
Yeah.
To expose Watchtower, to inform those that have been hurt, and do what we can to help people.
Yeah.
That's right.
And at Deasis, you triggered this because it's thanks to you that I've more sense
See,
of
I
my
gave you
opinion.
subject matter material.
So I want you to have the last word because of that. So if you were to say to the people watching, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to hear before we close?
That aggressive activism is not all mindless, angry spewing of all that good stuff. We have a purpose, and it's the same purpose as assertive activist, a regular activist, and we are targeting a different part of Watchtower. It's not the members that we're targeting. Usually it is the authority and people on the outside to spread awareness and to make people, aware of all the corruption and everything going on, and also sending a message to Watchtower that we're not going to tolerate it, and that if you continue to do a lot of the destructive things that you do, there's hell to pay. I mean, that's all I can really say to that.
Yeah, well, I think that was very well said.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, as always, if you like this video, don't forget to click like. Be sure to subscribe and hit that little notify icon so when I release new videos, you get that little pop-down message from YouTube. And as always, thanks for watching.